What's up guys, my name is Natalie and welcome to my Nook of Novels. Today I am going to be talking about bad books. I'm just going to rant to you for as long as I feel like about just annoying things that bother me in these books. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Dragon's Price by Bethany Wiggins. Now I didn't necessarily dislike this book. There were just things about it that bothered me to no end. The romance in this book. This is the definition of insta-love, the plot. So this girl at the start, she's a princess, right? And everybody is telling her that she either has to marry this dude or be fed to a dragon. This prince is telling her that she has to marry his older brother, who already has 3 wives, and she believes him. He literally tells her afterwards, he's like, wait, I was joking. It was only a joke. You weren't actually gonna marry him. You were gonna marry me. And she's like, excuse me, what? But like, why would you make her think that she's gonna have to marry this dude with 3 wives? This girl doesn't know anything about what she's getting into at all. Like, nobody bothers to tell her the rules of this thing when her life literally depends on it. It's so dumb. And then she's like, nah, I'm gonna get fed to a dragon. And he's like, well, I guess I'll follow you in there. And everyone's like, no, don't do that. She chooses the prince, but she's already said that she chose the dragon. She already binded her choice or whatever. They have to feed her to a dragon. Her parents are just like, well, sorry, you already said it. And just try to feed her to this dragon. Like, it's a stressful time. And after half a day, she's in love with this man. There's a lot going on. It's kind of a disaster. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Sweet Treats and Secret Crushes by Lisa Greenwald. So I don't know when I read this book. I want to say it was a few years ago, but I distinctly remember how much I disliked it because there is no plot to this thing whatsoever. All I remember is that I was just waiting for this stuff with her crush to happen because that's kind of the title of the book, right? That's like what I was expecting going into this. But the entire book, her and her best friends are walking around this apartment giving people fortune cookies. That's all that happens in this book. Maybe the last 2 chapters, things actually start to happen. And there's like some drama between the girls and stuff that's really annoying and unnecessary, but it's just like, oh, some fortune cookies, have a nice life. And then that's literally all that happens. Next, I'm going to talk about 2 books, and those are Midnight Sun and Life and Death by Stephenie Meyer. They are both different versions of Twilight that Stephenie Meyer has written. And I disliked them a lot. Twilight wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. But these 2 books are just Twilight. Like, if you've read Twilight, you have read both of these. It's the same plot. Stephenie Meyer does do some things to change it up a little bit in these stories. But if you're not obsessed with Twilight, then it's gonna bore you very much. When I read Life and Death, it was immediately after I read Twilight, and I was so bored because it was literally the exact same thing that I had just read, but ever so slightly different. It just didn't add enough for me to feel like that they were good. Now I'm going to talk about 3 different books, and those are My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craig George, Hatchet by Gary Paulson, and Brian's Return by Gary Paulson. But the reason that I'm talking about all 3 of these at once is, like the Twilight books, they're the exact same book. So this is the 3rd book in this series, and My Side of the Mountain is a completely different book, but it's the exact same concept. So Hatchet, he's in a plane with someone who has a heart attack, has to try to land the plane, and then has to survive in the wilderness because he's alone in the wilderness. In this book, he misses the wilderness and decides to go back to the wilderness to live there. And then in this book, this kid is just like, you know what? Off to the woods I go, I guess. In both of these, they just don't care about their families at all. They're just like, oh, the woods is great. Who needs a family? Who needs civilization when you can go live in the woods? Nature is great and stuff, but I do not understand why they would just completely ditch their families. I know there's people looking for me, and I know I have a family that cares about me and stuff, but nah, let's just go live on my own. I'm old enough. These kids are so young, and they just know a bunch of this stuff, and they know exactly how to survive. I just don't understand. How do they know all these things? I'm reading these books being confused because I'm like, how did he do that? What did he do to make that thing? I would be screwed if I were either of these children because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make all these fancy things and survive on my own. And something from this that I remember specifically because I just read it is this kid is planning to go back into the woods and he's ordering all of these things with his parents' money, and his parents completely don't care. They just completely disregard that he's ordering all these things that are obviously survival things. He orders a hunting bow and his parents are just like, oh, that's cool, and he just takes it all to his room. They just don't ever mention, is there a reason you have all of these things just vibing in your bedroom? They're just oblivious to what he's doing. Next up, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. My thing with this book is it did not need to be over 1100 pages long. The entire book, he's just saying, oh, Napoleon did this and Bonaparte did that, and all these people are getting married and vibing, and somebody died over there, and these people are like, oh, war, oh well. That is all I got from this book. There's a giant philosophical dump at the end, which I guess I can see why it's a classic because of that and the philosophical little things that are sprinkled here and there throughout it. But why is this thing so long? It does not need to be this long. Every single thing that he describes does not need to last 600 pages. Chill it out, man. Condense this thing a tiny bit because nobody wants to read all of that. I mean, maybe some people do, but I personally did not. I gave it 3 stars still. It was alright, but 1100 pages. Next up is Learning to Fly by Dana Berkey, the first book in the TNT Force Cheer series. My thing with this book is that you can very obviously tell that the author is not a cheerleader whatsoever, and so the way that she describes a lot of things, they would make sense, I guess, to someone who isn't a cheerleader. By reading this, there's a lot of things that I'm like, no, that's wrong. You should not be telling people that and making them think that that's how it works, because that's not how it works. And this child is just like, oh, that looks like a fun thing, and just learns all of these skills in a week. And I'm just sitting here like, okay, yeah, that's realistic, because as someone who has done this for years, I still do not have half of the things that she can do, and it's just not realistic at all. Next up, I'm going to talk about The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. The book was great. The only thing I'm going to say about this is, why are there 3 entire movies for this? It's not the book's fault. J.R.R. Tolkien did a great job. This is a good book. But why did they make it 3 movies in 9 hours for this 300-page thing? Do you see this? Why does that exist? Next up is Paper Covers Rock. The plot of this book was good. There was a mystery about some kid who died at this camp. A lot of this book was focused on this kid having a crush on one of the teachers. It was just so annoying because it took up so much of the book. It was just very obnoxious and it was just completely unnecessary in my opinion. Next up is The Flip Side by Shawn Johnson. I love Shawn Johnson. She has a YouTube channel and she is an Olympic gold medalist in gymnastics and she's great, but I didn't love her book so much. It's basically about this little girl who is a gymnast and she is about to compete in the Olympics, but she's trying to hide her gymnastics life from her real life. Like, she's trying to keep them completely separate, and she literally lies to her best friend for, I want to say, years about being a gymnast. I just think that that is so dumb. I get not wanting the fame, I guess, of being an Olympic gold medalist, but not even telling your best friend about that. That is just ridiculous in my opinion. Now I'm going to talk about Snowscape by Patrick Ness. The rest of his Chaos Walking trilogy I really enjoyed, and his novellas I liked a lot as well. The Wide Wide Sea and The New World. And then Snowscape was just so disappointing to me. The plot just seemed really boring. There just wasn't much happening. They went to this place and were like, oh no, there's like a scary thing. And they were like, nobody cares. Come in here, this place or whatever. And they were like, oh, we should leave. And they were like, oh, okay. And then they left and it was like, oh, big scary thing. And that was it. It was 40 pages, but that 40 pages dragged on forever. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume. The reason that this book bothered me so much was because these kids are absolute brats. That's all I remember from the book. I do not remember anything that happened in this book except that the kids just bugged me. Everything that happened between these two siblings was just them wanting attention and despising each other because they took attention away from each other. Last but not least is books 2 and 3 in the Mysterious Benedict Society. These are by Trenton Lee Stewart. I honestly don't remember much that happened in them. I just remember that the first book was so much more exciting than the second and third ones. It may have been because I was older when I read them, but the first one just excited me so much more, and I think that it was the unknown element, I feel like, of the first one. We really just had no idea what all of these things were for and why these kids were even taking all these tests and things. I feel like that was just a lot more exciting than, oh, we gotta figure out some puzzles to find out what he's gonna make us do next. I don't know, I just didn't really care that much in those two. That was my rant about pet peeves and things that bothered me in books. Maybe if you guys have read these, maybe those things did not bother you guys as much, or I'm just being really super duper picky, or I don't know, maybe you guys agree with me on some of these things. But let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, if you guys had the same thoughts, or if you completely disagree, or anything like that. And please like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you would like to, and hit the notification bell if you want to see the other videos that I post on Mondays. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!